George Russell was not just fighting for pole in Austria. He was fighting the one accusation that can turn speed into suspicion. Because Verstappen crashed at turn 9, yellow flags appeared. Antonelli backed out. Ferrari thought Leclerc had pole, and then Russell crossed the line fastest. 1 minute, 6.113 seconds. A lap that should have been a Mercedes celebration instantly became a paddock-wide investigation. Russell says he lifted. Mercedes says he lost time. The stewards allowed the lap to stand. But here's the problem. If the data shows even one moment where Russell carried too much speed through the yellow flag zone, then this is not just a controversial pole. It is a warning sign for the entire Mercedes championship fight because one Mercedes driver chose caution. The other chose the gray area, and only one of them got rewarded. That is why this moment is so dangerous. It exposes Russell's instinct under pressure, Antonelli's sacrifice, Ferrari's frustration, Red Bull's opportunity, and a rule that may have just shown every driver how to survive a yellow flag without giving up the prize. The official decision saved Russell's pole, but it may not save Mercedes from what comes next. Subscribe to the channel. The first layer of this controversy is not the lap time, it is the timing. Because Russell did not complete that pole lap in a calm, ordinary qualifying session where everyone had a clean shot and the fastest driver simply won. He completed it in the final seconds, when the Red Bull ring had already become a pressure cooker, when Ferrari thought the front row was opening, when Mercedes needed a statement, and when Max Verstappen's crash suddenly turned the final sector into the most disputed stretch of track in Austria. That is what makes this story feel so dangerous. The moment Verstappen lost control at turn 9, the session changed instantly. 1 second, drivers were chasing the limit. The next, they were entering a zone where danger mattered more than lap time. Yellow flags appeared, and with them came the question that still hangs over Russell's pole. Did he react enough? Not. Did he react a little? Not. Did he say he lifted? Not. Did Mercedes defend him? Did he do enough for a lap that became pole position to feel clean? That is the part Mercedes cannot escape, because Formula One is not judged only by the official timing screen. It is judged by what people believe they saw, and what people saw in Austria was almost impossible to ignore. Verstappen crashed. Antonelli backed out. Russell finished the lap. Russell went fastest. Those 4 facts created the entire storm. And the reason the debate became so loud is simple. Kimi Antonelli was in the same team, in the same fight, under the same pressure, and he made the opposite decision. He saw the yellow flag and abandoned the lap. No calculation, no attempt to save it, no attempt to thread the needle. He chose safety, certainty, and no risk of a deleted time. That choice cost him. Russell chose differently. He did not completely abandon the lap. He lifted according to his own explanation. He reduced speed according to the steward's final view. He kept the car moving, kept the lap alive, and crossed the line with a time of 1 minute, 6.113 seconds. Pole position, that is where the controversy becomes more than a rule debate. It becomes a question of instinct. Because in Formula One, the greatest drivers are not just fast, they are decisive. They make choices at impossible speed with incomplete information under pressure that most people will never understand. But yellow flags are supposed to change that calculation. When a yellow flag appears, the message is not, find the smallest possible time loss. The message is, danger ahead, slow down, be prepared, respect the situation. And this is why Russell's lap sits in such an uncomfortable place. The available report says the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile reviewed the data and decided not to delete the lap. The stewards were satisfied that Russell had discernibly reduced speed in the relevant marshal sector. That means the official position was clear enough for the lap to stand. But official does not always mean settled, because the bigger emotional question remains. If Antonelli felt he had to give up the lap, why was Russell still able to take pole? That question can cut through an entire garage. Mercedes can explain the regulation. They can explain the difference between a single yellow and a double yellow. They can explain that Russell lifted. They can explain that he was already carrying a large advantage before the yellow zone and that he lost time after reacting. All of that may be true. But inside a championship fight, the emotional meaning is harder to control. Antonelli made the safer choice and lost the reward. Russell made the riskier choice and gained the biggest prize. And that is a lesson no driver forgets. Every decision is examined. Every radio message sounds heavier. Every stewarding note becomes part of the story. That is what Russell's lap has created. Not proof of guilt, not an official deleted pole, but a pressure point that Mercedes now has to carry into the next stage of the season. And the most uncomfortable detail is this. The official review may have closed the case, but it did not close the debate, because the real question was never only, did Russell break the rule? The real question is whether Formula One is comfortable with a driver taking pole after passing through a yellow flag zone, while his own teammate decided the same warning meant the lap was over. That question is still alive. And as long as it is alive, Mercedes cannot fully turn this pole into a celebration. But the reason this controversy became so sharp is not only what Russell did, it is what the data was supposed to prove. Because in Formula One, the television picture can start the argument, but it cannot finish it. A camera can show a car passing through a yellow flag zone. It can show a crash. It can show a driver continuing. It can show another driver backing out. But it cannot always show the most important thing. The trace, the hidden line inside the car that tells the stewards what Russell's right foot actually did. That is where the whole story changes. Because when people hear that the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile looked at the data, they imagine one simple answer: guilty or innocent, legal or illegal, lap deleted or lap confirmed. But the truth is more uncomfortable. The data does not just answer whether Russell slowed. It shows how much he slowed. It shows where he lifted. It shows whether he braked earlier. It shows whether the car was still carrying too much speed in the exact marshal sector where the yellow flag was active. And that level of detail is why Mercedes could not simply celebrate the pole and move on. Because the moment the stewards began checking Russell's lap against his previous best, the lap stopped being just a brilliant final run. It became a piece of evidence. Every meter mattered. Every fraction mattered. Every movement of the throttle mattered. And the most dangerous part was the comparison. The stewards were not only looking at Russell's lap in isolation, they were looking at it against what he had already done before. They needed to know whether the car's behavior changed clearly when the yellow flag appeared. That word is crucial. Clearly. Not emotionally, not vaguely, clearly. Because under a single yellow, the driver does not automatically lose the lap. The requirement is that he must reduce speed and be prepared to react. The stewards need to be satisfied that the driver did not treat the warning like it was optional. That is where Russell's defense becomes important. He did not claim the yellow flag never mattered. He did not say he stayed flat. He did not pretend the lap was completely untouched. His argument was that he lifted significantly, lost time, and still had enough advantage from earlier in the lap to take pole. That is a very specific defense. And it is also the reason the debate became so frustrating, because if Russell had not lifted at all, the story would be simple. The lap would be indefensible. Mercedes would have nowhere to hide. But if Russell lifted enough for the stewards and still took pole, the debate becomes much harder. Now the question is not whether he reacted. It is whether his reaction matched the spirit of the warning. And that is the gap where the whole paddock started arguing. Mercedes saw proof of compliance. Critics saw proof of a loophole. Russell saw a controlled response. Antonelli's aborted lap made that response look risky by comparison.